All right, welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight. Final segment here. Ben, let's talk a little bit about what running it back really means to you, because there are certainly things that you'd like to tweak about this team. I mean, look, we don't know what the ultimate record is going to be at the end of this year, but if they have another losing season, I think some people are going to have a hard time being sold on, okay, everything is fine, let's just keep with the same plan. But something's important here. The plan, understanding that the plan, at least from the way I viewed it, love to get your take on this, the plan for me was never all about 2020. We're all in on 2020, and if it's 2020 or bust, and if it doesn't work, then we're blowing it up.
Right.
This plan had a multi-year facet to it. It almost had to because of the relative youth of the team.
Right. It always did. In fact, that was the thing. 2020 was a foundation year for what they were going to do here, and that 2021 was really going to be the season where they started cashing their chips and pushing all in. And that's the way it's still playing out. And I understand frustration. I understand, fans not liking not winning. But there's a couple, we've talked about this before, there's a couple of perspective shifts most fans need to have. First of all, it hasn't been 5 years. It's been a year and a half. When you make the coaching change, that resets the timer on everything, and you got to put the other stuff in the past. Are the Broncos appreciably better than they were when at the end of the Vance Joseph era than where they are now? Yes, resoundingly. Did that show up in the records? Not necessarily, but they're competitive in games, and you hope to take that competitive and turn that into wins at some point. I mean, they've been in 3 games this season where they've had the ball for a final game-winning potential drive and not come away with it, and it's against Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Atlanta. Atlanta, despite the record, is a good football team. The other two are great football teams. All the Steelers are undefeated. So, I think that in the end, if you're the Denver Broncos, there are some things you need to evaluate. You need to take a look at special teams and ask yourself if you need to make a change at the top. You need to look around at your offensive line and make sure that you feel like you've got the correct protection, the guys to run the scheme in front of Drew Lock. I think you've got the right skill position players, although you may need to look at that running back position one more time. You need to bring somebody in to push Drew just a little bit. And then on the defensive side, you're probably going to have a little bit of attrition this year, so you're going to have to reinforce that. But as far as running it back goes, really what that means is keeping a lot of the key cogs in place. The areas where you don't think you need to improve, where you think you've got it, making sure those are secured and making sure you've got good backups for that, and then rolling forward. Familiarity with scheme in the second and third year always leads to big dividends. Go back and look at these coaches, and I'll tell you, you get an uptick from year 1 to year 2 with familiarity in a scheme.
I love that you said that, and that's so important, and we talk about continuity all the time, but you're trying to build something that lasts, right? And you hit it right on the head right there, is just saying, you reset the coaching staff, you reset, significant parts of this, you're resetting scheme too. You're resetting the drafts that you've had over the last couple of years where you drafted, say, guys like Michael Ojemudia, who was drafted specifically for this scheme.
Right.
If you're trying to get him to play man up, I think we all saw what that looked like in Atlanta. It's not exactly what you wanted to do, but he can be very talented and can be very effective in this scheme as a zone corner.
Right.
So for me, that's kind of how, when I say running it back, I'm saying, okay, but you have built some things here that have potential to pay off maybe a year or 2 down the road. And I can understand the Broncos fans, resistance to that, because you've already waited several years, but that coaching staff can't necessarily be accountable for all the things that happened 3-4 years ago.
And that's really what it is. You talk about building something sustainable, and there's truth to that. But you're trying to build something that can work within the philosophy of what you're trying to do, and give yourself a 2 or 3 year window to do it. And you're going to have turnover, as that goes. But I think that's where they are. You're about to hit year 3, and that's where you evaluate a coaching staff. At the end of their 3rd year, that's when you should be evaluating a coaching staff. The problem is we become such a gimme now society that people don't give coaches and players the chance to become what they can become because they want it now. And they see examples of immediate return. You look at Justin Herbert, although they're not winning football games with how good Herbert is. So I don't, but you see examples of the immediate success, and it causes you to lose patience with the tried and true methodology.
Exactly, because that's what happens is a coach or a quarterback or lightning in a bottle, right? It happens. And all of a sudden people are like, well, why didn't our coach or our quarterback pop right when they were supposed to? We must have the wrong ones. Well, it's not. Look, the rest of the league doesn't even look at it like that. And you see the majority of teams don't have the Patrick Mahomes, or in this case, Justin Herbert, who's going to probably be the offensive rookie of the year. Like, it doesn't always click like that for every single team right out of the jump. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. just because the path is maybe, I wouldn't say circuitous, but just because the path takes a little bit longer doesn't mean it's the wrong path. The problem is there's guesswork in the middle of that. But again, if we knew the answer, we'd have already done it. The fact is you have to do the process. And one thing I want to touch on also before we get out of here is culture. The reason you keep the coaching staff in place is because you're building a culture. And if you think the culture is suffering because of that coaching staff, or you've lost some of the direction that you'd like to go, that's when you make a change. I haven't seen any of that, and I haven't talked to players that are feeling that way.
Yeah, I resoundingly, you talk to these players off the record when they'll be honest with you. They'll be honest with us. We got a rapport. And they'll tell you it's the same thing that they're saying publicly at this point. It's, hey, we're still all in. We love what this is doing. We see the right direction. We're just on the cusp and not quite winning games. So have a little patience. I know that's tough to say. I know that's tough to do. I know it's tough to hear. But I'm telling you, if this team can get healthy, it could be in for a heck of a run next year.